at the weekend. We're gonna roll right into things here this week. So welcome, party people, to the Whatnauts Captain's Log number 162. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined, as always, by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how's your week been?
It's good. I'm still here, still chugging along. I work a lot, but sometimes I find that little glimmer of time where I get to go to the mall and recharge my mall energy.
There you go. Good mall energy. Good stuff indeed. This week, we also have a special guest joining us, someone who I am super excited to have on the show. I think this is going to be a blast. You've written numerous comics. You have your own podcast focused entirely on heist movies and stuff like that. There's lots of fun stuff that we can dive into today. So welcome, Stephanie Cooke. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited, and I want to talk about stuff.
All sorts of stuff. Stuff indeed. Stuff and things. This is really exciting for me personally because I found you, Stephanie, through Talking Comics, the podcast that you used to host on. They're still going. I just listened to their newest one yesterday. If you guys like good comic books and comic book news and all that stuff, go check them out. But that's how I found you, and I've been following you on Twitter since then, and I've seen you go to Rogue's Portal and Creator Resources and then write your own comics and do all sorts of stuff, and it's been neat to see how far you've come. But this is kind of full circle because Talking Comics was also the very first podcast that I got into and listened to regularly. This is a huge honor to have you on the show. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Gosh, that's old school memories, and I've been just thinking about them today actually, and was looking up and saying hey to Bobby. Bobby and I were discussing the Mario news, and
yes. Yeah.
I think I sent him a text that was like, who asked for this? But, it's good times. And, I always really remember fondly, the early days in kind of comic book life for me was podcasting and having that family. Yeah. So I'll always make time to do podcasts and talk to people. And plus, I just really like to talk. So
good stuff. Good stuff. So I speaking of first podcast, the question that I wanted to start things out with tonight is, what was your first podcast experience? Did you have one that you listened to regularly, or are you a regular podcast listener? Because I know some people make them, but they also don't necessarily listen to them all that much. What was your first podcast experiences like?
Yeah, so I am one of those horrible people that just doesn't really listen to podcasts all that much. But in my defense, for a really long time, I didn't have a commute, which is where I would listen to podcasts typically.
Yeah.
So I'm into podcasts, but then I also have ADHD. So for the same reason that I can't really listen to audiobooks, sometimes I have trouble listening to podcasts because 30 minutes will go by and I'm like, wait, what were they talking about? What happened? But I do listen to podcasts on occasion. I really this is probably more in the last several years. I was listening to My Dad Wrote a Porno, and, there's another great one about movies, old-timey movies, which I'm struggling to remember the name of right now. You Might Remember or something.
Oh, You Must Remember This?
Yes. Again, I listen to them so sporadically, so forgive me. I know it's actually a huge podcast too, and it's probably a crime that I straight up just don't know all of these huge ones, but I listen kind of on occasion. So I think that one was a big one that I listened to. And then also one of the first ones that I really started to get into was the Mortified podcast.
I haven't.
There was also a Netflix. Oh my gosh. Okay. There was also this Netflix series that they did. And basically it's people reliving their angsty teenage drama. So they have like a theme. So for instance, they'll do, Lord of the Rings is this theme. And people will go through their old journals or old like live journals, and they'll get up on a stage in front of a live studio audience and read excerpts from their journals and provide context. So they tell stories revolving around how they like stalked Orlando Bloom or like, whatever. And then how their mom was like the worst mom ever because she was like, you're not going to marry Orlando Bloom. And I was like, suck it, mom. Like, it's just this really relatable teenage angst. So there's a podcast and it's, oh my God, it's so good. But then they, again, also did a Netflix series where it's the same thing, but they are showing you obviously like what you're listening to. So there's still that theme and they connect all of the kind of stories so that there's, they feel connected.
Interesting. There you go. Yeah.
It's really, really funny. And it's one of those ones that like you laugh out loud with, and then people look at you funny when you're on the subway.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. Melissa, I don't know if I've asked you that question in the past. We've talked about tons of podcasts on our own show. But what was your first one that you got into?
My first podcast was the Pod F Tompcast, hosted by my favorite comedian, Paul F. Tompkins.
There you go. Interesting.
And I think I started listening to it in like 2013. My brother recommended it to me because he was at like a very mundane desk job at the time that then I inherited when he left for a better job. So I needed like all his same podcast recommendations to fill my time. And yeah, he told me about that one. I'm like, I remember Paul F. Tompkins from like I Love the 80s and Best Week Ever. That guy was funny. Let me see what kind of podcast he has. And it was this like abstract talk show where like he'd have another comedian on, he'd talk with him, like not really an interview because it was often like somebody who's one of his friends. So it was just sort of like a chat. And then he was doing like a live variety show on stage. And then he'd play you like a recorded sketch from that show. And he had like a little audio drama where he did like celebrity impersonations where it's like, a John Lithgow and the artist from the Exit Through the Gift Shop. They're like in an adventure together or something. Yeah. I barely remember what it was anymore. I think it was all done by the time I found it in 2013.
Okay.
But I loved it. And it was also like set in like a weird digital night space. Like every episode would begin with this woman's voice saying, "It's nighttime on the internet." Welcome to the Pod F Tomcast. Like he's hosting this talk show from just like the eternal dusk in the middle of the internet.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking Comics was my first podcast that I had like gotten into and listened to regularly. For me at the time, I had moved out to Texas because I dropped out of college. Well, I guess I didn't really drop out entirely. I was taking time off and moved out with my parents who were out in Texas at the time. And I got a job that allowed me to I couldn't really like goof off on the computer and like look up all the comic book news that I was hoping to look up, but they were like, you can put headphones on and do that stuff. So I was like, hey, I think I like Kevin Smith did these things called podcasts or something. I should really check those out. And I would just like, what comic book podcasts are out there? And then I saw some recommendation for Talking Comics, and Stephanie, you were on that one, and I was like, I like this one. This is great. That they have a great cast and they know their stuff, and there you go. It was a good fun time, and then like
they're the best.
Years
Bob
later.
Bob still like sends me emails and letters constantly, and like
Bob is amazing.
I love they're my family, you know, like I talk to Bobby all the time now. Again, like my birthday was like last week, and Bob like promptly before I woke up,
by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I can always rely on Bob to like send me, you know, like either a physical card or, you know, he's on the ball with like an email, and every single email, just you can hear his voice and it feels like this letter written out with love. Like it's such a special person that can write in a way that makes you feel like they like handcrafted every single thing, you know? Like,
yeah,
love Bob.
Absolutely. Bob is an amazing human being. He's great. But speaking of podcasts, let's talk about Capercast. This is your new podcast that you've started this year, I think since like early summer. You guys have been putting out 2 episodes a month, all about heist films and capers and such.
Yes.
How did this podcast come to be? Where did you guys get the idea for this one?
This is like a longer story that I can't get into too much yet, but
sure, that's fair.
I'll say that Whitney, who is my co-host, Whitney Gardner, we've been friends for a couple of years now, and we're just kind of like looking for something fun to do together, and we're both really impulsive, and I thought of this heist thing, and I remember like texting Whitney. I was like, oh, let's do a podcast. We can review like heist films and blah, 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 blah. And she was like immediately on board. I was like, yes. And we started like doing research, looking for like the best heist films, and then like, you know, some unknown gems and all of these other things.
Okay.
And the idea came together pretty quickly. And we were just kind of like going back and forth to trying to build a format for it, which we're still playing with a little bit. It's pretty early days. And we launched it in June. So we do 2 episodes a month. And basically we are exploring, we're adding the capers into there, because I think a lot of the films we watch accidentally turn out to be more capers than anything. Like our first movie was Snatch. And it is like arguably not really a heist movie at all. Like it's like a series of failed heists. Like it's like what happened if the worst criminals decided they wanted to do a heist and were just really bad at everything. And we were like, maybe this isn't the best movie to have started with. So I don't know. We've just kind of quickly left it, and we're just having fun exploring films that are kind of, I guess, under the umbrella of capers.
Sure.
So we've been doing like a lot of like trivia and stuff. And
how then would you kind of differentiate a heist from a caper then? Wait, have you guys started to make that distinction on the show?
We've had to. Because again, Snatch is failed heist. It's technically, the heist elements in a way are there, but they just don't ever come together. And then we added movies that we just really liked, like Chicken Run on there, and there's no heist whatsoever in Chicken Run.
That's a good one.
Right?
I listened to a couple episodes.
Oh, sorry.
I want to say I'm so happy you got to the Great Muppet Caper and this early. I'm so happy you're like, Muppets, gotta make them a priority. We have to discuss them stealing the baseball diamond.
Yes. Like Whitney's birthday's in August. Mine is in September. So like we were discussing the upcoming movies, and she was like, Steph, I gotta request this for my birthday. Like we gotta do Muppets. And I was like, yes.
Good choice.
Right? The episode that just came out this week was my birthday choice, which was Fast Five.
There you go.
A pretty strange, I guess, difference in taste there. But we both we have very similar kind of sensibilities, and we like the same kind of jokes. And it's just been really fun to explore these movies. So again, like Chicken Run is like not, again, really a heist, unless you count them as the heist, like they're heisting themselves. Out of there, in which case that's just called an escape movie. But like,
you can have multiple subcategories. You can have heist, caper, and escape.
Yes, I think they all kind of, again, go under the umbrella. And we did initially really try to kind of justify them. And now we're just like, screw it, they're all capers. Like, it is what it is. We're just going to talk about the movies. So it's been really fun. And yeah, Muppets, I will never not laugh at that scene where they get fired from the newspaper job. Yes. And he's like, I only gave you this job because of your dad. And he holds up a picture of Fozzie Bear, but green and with the Muppet collar. And I'm just, oh.
Like weird Saturn eyes that Kermit has. Truly unsettling.
Good. And the more I watch this, and like, I rewatched Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and again, the Muppets and all this stuff. And like, I'm starting to just like deeply realize what influenced who I am as like a human being. I'm like, oh, I like puns because of all this stuff. Like, media did this to me. So, yeah, it's been a blast.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Do you guys have like some in mind that you guys have not gotten to yet that you're really excited about? Like, oh, one day we have to do X, Y, and Z. I don't have one that I can just be like, that one. That's heist. Yes.
We have like a massive list. Like, I think there's still like 90 something titles on there. Oh, so we have like a few years of content, and new movies keep coming out all the time. And heists kind of seem to be a hip thing right now. So we actually just recorded our October episodes for like spooky season. And we did like Army of the Dead, which is like the Zack Snyder zombie heist movie. And then today, Netflix announced they released a trailer for the spin-offs. They're doing like a bunch of these films. And so every single time I think we make a dent in our list, like 5 more heist movies get announced. And so it just keeps getting longer. But we want to do, speaking of Bob and Talking Comics, Bob is already lined up as one of our first guests at some point. We haven't set a date yet, but he's going to come do like Charade. And
that'd be awesome.
There's like a lot of like old movies we want to explore that we haven't watched. And then again, there's like all of these new ones that keep kind of popping up too. Sure, and there's a lot that we haven't seen. So I'm really excited to do the one with Bob because it's Bob. And I know with like Audrey Hepburn in the mix, he's just going to have a lot of like feelings, and I feel like he might cry, and it's going to be great.
It'll be a blast for sure. For sure. Have you guys thought at all about doing it? Because there's like, I guess, for example, the Italian Job or something that has like the original one, and then there's the like newer in air quotes there that like a compare and contrast kind of thing to see what the differences are and stuff like that.
Yeah, we have one of them lined up. Like, we are just kind of figuring it out now. Because obviously there's a ton of Ocean's movies, including like the original. But the anniversary of the remake is coming up in December. So we were going to make it like Ocean's Month. We're just kind of trying to figure out the logistics of it. Because like Whitney and I collectively, individually have no chill, and like collectively just have like no chill. So we're like, what if we do like 8 episodes in this month? And we're like, it's the holidays. Will people really be listening to these episodes that we sporadically and spontaneously release all at once? So we're like,
I have to do something to escape the family stuff.
Oh my God, yes. But like at the same time, one of us always kind of like reins us in and is like, but should we? We could, but should we? So we probably will. Who knows? But that is like one of the ones coming up where we are very interested in checking out the original versus like the remake, and then exploring those movies all as part of a series. So I'm so excited.
There you go. Well, you mentioned the Mario news before, and oddly enough, I'm kind of relating Mario to heists right here, right now. So the whole kind of story behind Mario and stuff like that is pretty simple, right? He's a plumber. He's in love with Peach. Peach often gets stolen by Bowser, and then Mario has to go save her. Does that mean that Mario is a heist film in a weird way, or is the heist film when Bowser steals her?
I mean, again, you could probably just put it under a caper. That's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
although, yeah, like, I mean, he's stealing her, but then they have to steal her back. So it's a double heist.
Double heist, yeah.
Yeah. In any damsel movie might be a heist. I think The Princess Bride could be considered a heist if we're using that as our logic.
Oh my God. Yeah, we're going to wind up with so many movies. Like the Capercast is going to turn into completely devolve. And people are like, how is this a heist movie? I'll be like, listen, we are the experts here. We will tell you what is or isn't a heist. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Anytime one object is removed from its setting, that's a heist.
It's a heist. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and if not,
you could go for all of the rom-coms and romance movies where someone steals someone's partner and be like, it's a heist, it's a caper, here you go.
Yeah. Whitney actually uncovered recently that there is actually a Hallmark heist movie, and we're trying to find it and figure out if it's one we could watch for this. We really are having a lot of fun doing this. I just love hanging out with Whitney, and then pair it with getting to talk about something that's really fun and silly. I feel bad because people get really excited when we watch serious heist movies like Inside Man, but Whitney and I are goofballs, and we're it was boring. Let's bring on the Muppets. And I feel people are just gonna be mad at us, but
you never know.
We like what we like.
It's good fun. Melissa, a couple about a month ago, I feel you were trying to entertain a theoretical heist here at the Whatnauts, and you had us all pick jobs of what our job would be in the heist. There, what one did you end up with?
I'm the cover story. So if we've got our heist man, if we've got our George Clooney walking into a casino, he's in disguise and he's like, I'm the maintenance man. I was called in to check on the pipes next to your vault. You can call the head office. They'll tell you. They sent me here. And then the receptionist dials the phone, and I'm that voice on the other end of the phone oh, George? Yeah, I heard you guys have it real rough down there. I sent George. George is one of the best. Give him as much access as he needs. Oh. And then the receptionist is like, okay, all right, I guess you're supposed to be here.
That's good. I think mine was hacker. I wanted to be the hacker guy or no, I think we ended up on I was the distraction.
Yes, because we played this game while you were on vacation. So I was talking to some of our other co-hosts about Kyle's not here, but let's decide what he would be. And we decided you would be the distraction. If we were doing a bank heist, we'd send you into the lobby to just essentially be our rodeo clown and keep all the civilians entertained.
Look at me! Good stuff. Stephanie, if you had to be part of a theoretical heist, what do you think your job would be? And what do you think Whitney's job would be?
Oh, no! Making me choose for Whitney too. I feel again, I am just thinking about everything in terms of Fast and the Furious. I have managed to bring up the Fast and the Furious in on every single podcast and show I've been on for the last 2-3 months. It's awful.
It's worth talking about. It's a good series.
My life. I know. I was on a comic book education podcast, and I was like, let's talk about the Fast and the Furious. I can bring it up and everything. But I think I'm thinking about some of the characters from that, because they have a really good trope character list. And I feel I'm the mouth. Like I just like talk so much.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of like a distraction person too, but I don't know. Like I feel like it could maybe anxiously talk my way out of stuff. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And then what would Whitney be? She's a good planner. Like she's like
Ooh.
like good like with like strategic stuff and like planning things out. So I wonder if like she would be kind of like a brains type character.
The
You
mastermind.
know, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be fun. That could be fun.
Right? Yeah, she's like really good at like figuring little bits and bobbles out. So I don't know. I'll think on it more. If I think of a better one, I'll just like randomly shout it like 20 minutes later. But
Of the characters in the Mushroom Kingdom, who do you think would be the explosives expert?
Oh.
Oh.
I don't. Who do we have? Who lives there? I've played Mario Party a couple times, and that's it.
It's kind of about all you need, though. You got Toad.
Dry Bones? He's a guy.
Dry Bones could be one, yeah. Yeah.
The bone is like dynamite.
I want it to be somebody like Toad, like, or Toadette, like just somebody like you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of completely random. They just have like a real love for like blowing things up, and they're just like really sweet and innocent. And they're just like want to make things go boom. You know?
I mean, yeah, I like that approach. I think the more literal approach would maybe be like Bob-omb. It like since he actually is a bomb, he would be the explosives expert. But that might be
would
too
he be
on
the
the
expert,
nose.
or would he just be
He
the
would
like
be the bomb. Like,
Yeah.
Sorry, kid.
I hope he's an expert in himself.
Toss him in there.
That's true.
Yeah. That's
Nobody
good.
knows me better than me.
Yeah. Melissa, did you get to hear about all of this Mario news, all of the stuff that's been happening?
Yeah,
This-
friend of the show Sam told me about this last night. And again, I know very little about Mario, but like I know these characters. I knew every character she named off. I have at least that much familiarity. And everybody in the cast sounds perfectly competent. They're all fine performers who I've enjoyed in other roles, but nobody seemed like they hit it out of the park. I'm like, yeah, I bet Chris Pratt would do a solid job as Mario. I really liked his voice work in Onward, but I can't imagine he was in like the top 5 of guys who you would think of to be a Mario.
Right? Be like, oh, we have to get him. He's the number one Mario. When I think of Mario, I think of Chris Pratt. That's the guy. I don't know.
I do like Charlie Day as Luigi, though. The idea of just having a frantic Luigi excites me. I want him to behave just like he did in Pacific Rim.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I feel like Jack Black as Bowser is probably their best. Well, that or Keegan-Michael Key as Toad. I think that
Always
one is
solid.
pretty inspired, and I think that'll be good. But yeah, this cast is just strange for this Mario animated movie. I really don't know what to expect. Like
Bobby called the Jack Black casting God tier. That's what he texted me this morning. I was like, "Is it though?" And he was like, "It's God tier, Stephanie." So
I mean, he's definitely gonna have a blast in that role. You know, he's just gonna eat up the scenery, or eat up the vocal booth
Eat
there.
up a
I guess
recording
he's not really.
booth.
Yeah.
Just gobble those soft, like vibration absorbing walls.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, we'll have to see. That movie's not out till next year, and stuff like that. But I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will start talking about some of the comics that Stephanie has created. We will be right back. We put a lot of hard work into the shows that we make, and yes, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and we'd love it if you would check them all out. You can find out more information on our website at thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in the Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. If you want to support what we do here at The Whatnauts, patreon.com/The Whatnauts is the best place to do that. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. You can get all kinds of exclusive content at the $3 tier. You can also get a shout out and thank you on all of our shows at the $5 tier. You can support us on Twitch by subscribing to our channel at twitch.tv/The Whatnauts, and we would love to have you all join us for our live streams and talk with us in the chat. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug or something else, go to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we are back. A big shout out to our Patreon supporters at the $5 tier. So thank you to Sam for supporting us for so long. We appreciate you. We love you a lot. Thank you for keeping the mics on. It helps us out a ton. Thank you. Thank you. Cool things that we've been up to here at the Whatnauts. Melissa, do you want to fill people in on some of the things that we've been up to here at the Whatnauts?
Yeah. Over on the review show, we just wrapped up Shame Timber, which is the time every year where Kyle and I list movies we should have seen by this point in our lives, but we have not. So, Kyle, last week we watched You're a Big Time Travel Nerd. You had not seen Looper somehow. We enjoyed our time with Looper.
It was so good. I don't know how I missed it.
And then at the end of this month, we're starting our new monthly ongoing series, watching one show all the way to its conclusion. And we're going to be talking about season 1 of the HBO drama, The Leftovers.
Yeah, here we go. And then on the Whatnauts Reactor Core, Ignacio and I just did our reactions to the first 3 Star Wars visions, those animated shorts that they have up on Disney+. The entire season is up, but we are going to be taking it in chunks. So if you guys want to go know our thoughts on that, it's up there. It's out there. Go check them out. Go. Ooh, Stephanie, comics.
Hello.
You're a big comic book fan. You've read a ton of them. You've written them. You've worked on a whole bunch of them. I believe you've won awards for some that you've worked on and stuff like that. You've recently put out a number of graphic novels. You have You have Oh My Gods, which I know you're currently working on a sequel for that one. And recently, you also put out ParaNorthern, which is perfect for the spooky season that's happening right now.
Yeah. I'm so excited. Oh, I should get them down. I could do what?
Oh,
these that are casually here?
Indeed.
They really are on the shelf above this, but also good for a shameless plug.
Tell us a bit about these. Both of these. Let's start with Oh My Gods.
Yeah, sure. So, this. Oh My Gods is the first in a series of original graphic novels written by me and Intra Fitzpatrick, with art by Juliana Moon and colors by Whitney Koger, who you might know from Giant Days, who did the colors for that. Mm-hmm. And basically, the idea is this girl from New Jersey, her mom gets a great new job and has to go take it. She wants her mom to pursue her dreams, but that means she has to go live with her dad for a little bit, who hasn't exactly been absentee, but she doesn't really have a strong relationship with him. So she heads off to go live with him in Greece and winds up in Mount Olympus. And she thinks it is kind of just like a namesake. She doesn't think it's the Mount Olympus.
And the name of the community that the name of the neighborhood,
Exactly. And she quickly realizes that is like not the case. And her new junior high is filled with gods and goddesses. So she has to quickly adjust to this. And to make matters worse, somebody in the school is now turning people to stone, and suspicion falls on Karen because she's new. So with her friends, she has to team up to clear her name and set the record straight. So it's a middle grade graphic novel, came out in January, and a sequel comes out to it in April next year.
Ooh.
It's called The Forgotten Maze.
Forgotten Maze. Interesting. Good stuff.
Love a maze.
Go ahead. Were you about to?
No, that was it. That was the entire statement. I love a maze.
There you go.
Yeah.
So where did you get the idea for this book? What about the like Greek mythology spoke to you, and like that's the pantheon for me?
Yeah, I think that like a lot of young people get really drawn into Greek mythology, and it's just like this cool thing that feels adult, like it's like
sure.
For adults, but then there's like monsters and like people with powers and all this like really cool stuff that appeals to that younger audience. So I think a lot of young people find their way to kind of reading up through something like Greek mythology, and they get really like roped into the world and the lore, and it's just really neat.
Yeah.
And as somebody who went to Catholic school for a long time, when you compare that religion to like Greek mythology, the one seems a lot cooler than the other. No offense. No offense. Like you just are just like, wow, I have to read the Bible, but like they have this though, and like no shade to the Bible. But yeah, I just like was really enamored with Greek mythology from like a really early time in my life. And
it's cool.
I connected with Insha years ago now. And somewhere along the way, we started kind of just like spitballing ideas. Like we did not set out to write a graphic novel together, like even remotely. We just kind of were having a normal conversation, and the idea kind of sprang to life. And we just started writing everything down, and we knew there was like something there. We both really loved what we were forming, even though we didn't really have a plan for it at the time. And we just kind of couldn't leave it alone. We kept coming back to it. And I really like making characters and story stuff too. But like Insha is like the character queen, like she's like making Pinterest boards and like mood boards and
that's amazing.
These like Spotify playlists, and the characters just kind of like started to feel like alive to us, I think. And, it just became this project that we wanted to see through. And yeah,
that's awesome.
Really, really wild.
Yeah. Now you're working on a sequel. Did you have kind of in mind how many of these you want to do, or is it just like, hey, we can, as long as we can keep coming up with stories, we'll keep churning them out?
Yeah, I think this is like, we don't really have a set number of stories that we necessarily want to do for this. Like, there's definitely, we have a Google Doc that has just kind of a bajillion different concepts and characters we want to explore and things that we want to do with the world and that we haven't gotten to do yet. So I think it's a matter of just kind of carrying on and kind of filling in those stories until it feels complete to us. And hopefully maybe that's never, there's like so much to play with. And like, these graphic novels, like it's like 200 pages. Yeah. Like looking at it. Mm-hmm. And like realistically, that's not a ton of room to tell a big story, especially when you're kind of doing like 4 to 5 panels per page, like for middle grade, it's a lot smaller of a panel count than like kind of more traditional comics. So there's still like you have pretty short stories that you're telling here. So we're not exploring a ton of the characterization in one book. And I think to kind of fill those out more, we would need more, and that our publisher should definitely get more for us, and we will keep writing them until...
Sounds like a great idea to me. You hear that?
Yeah.
Publisher? Sounds real good. Money.
We hope.
Money. Come on.
Right? We had it's really sweet though. I didn't ever think that it was going to kind of write middle grade. Like when we first kind of pitched this, and ParaNorthern too, we pitched them as YA because we kind of were thinking, like a teen audience, that would be fun. And our publisher in both instances was like, what if we aged them down to middle grade? And I was like, yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
And it's such a good fit that, and it bums me out that I didn't think to do that kind of originally for them. It's such a fun age range to write for. You can have tons of leeway with bad jokes and puns and all of that stuff. And they'll, your editor will actually be like, can we add more puns in? Can we add this in? And it's just
knowing you from all the podcasts that I've heard you on, that is music to your ears. Like, yes, I can do more puns.
Oh my gosh. Again, I keep bringing up the Talking Comics people now that I know who they are, but Bobby's birthday text to me was happy birthday from the only person I will even remotely tolerate puns from. So I love it. And my editor our editor too, she worked with me on ParaNorthern as well, but anyways, our editor just really got the stories and it's just more jokes, more this. And it brings me a lot of joy. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Did you have an example of how maybe those mood boards or those playlists that Insha is how you
Insha, yeah.
That they made that then inspired you to change something or be like, oh, now that connects with this thing, and you have some example of that, how you guys inspired one another?
I'm not too sure. Again, Insha has it in her head when she has a character, and she really builds them up. And sometimes we'd go back and forth where I'm just like, oh, I don't know if that's something, or I would put something in, and she'd be like, I don't know if that's really kind of on point. And we built the characters, but then how our collaborative process worked. We built the outline of the story together once we had that foundation in place. And then we did the outline really heavily and kind of built the skeleton of the story together. And it's us basically all caps locks, being la, 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 just really excited about everything. And then adding in really silly kind of quotes. We're just oh, they have to say this or they have to say this. And once we had that, I just, again, have no chill. So I wrote the script really loosely and put in placeholder dialogue. But then Insha would go in and be like, this is cool, but I don't envision the character being like this. I think this should be like this. Or some of the dialogue should be more like this. This feels more unique to this character. So that was really, I think Insha would have more examples of that than I think I would. Because
Gotcha.
She would see certain things with the dialogue or whatever and be like, that doesn't feel very Tina. That feels like Dita. That feels like so-and-so. And Tina's Athena, Dita's Aphrodite. And so we kind of modernized the characters a bit and obviously had to age them down. So it's kind of just finding a balance between having both of our voices there, but then letting them embody the characters that we created originally, it's, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense.
But I think a lot of the mood boards come into place because, again, we have a group chat with Juliana, because we brought her onto the team before we pitched it, and we just have a chat where it's just again, all of us just screaming at each other, excited with love, but all in caps locks. And, Juliana will be like, oh, I don't know what to do for this character. And it's just 1 sec, hold please. And then we'll go in and build all of these things, be like, does this Spotify playlist help you? Does this help you? Does this? And Juliana will be like, yes. And so I really think like Insha's kind of the architect that fleshed out the characters the most, you know, like we built these characters together, and Juliana would be like, can we add this person in? Can we add this? And Insha would be like, yes, you know, like just, we're all just maniacal mad scientists with this sandbox. And it's just like a lot of fun to play around with them and
It's awesome.
to collaborate in such a fun way.
Yeah. Melissa, you're a big fan of playlists as well, and you've made some for stuff that we've done here at the Whatnauts, and you surprised me with them. And some like stuff like that can just be like the coolest thing to like really get like, okay, this is that character's attitude, or this is how they view the world, or stuff like that. It's super neat to have that stuff be at least in your minds when you're making that book. I'm not sure if you guys put out like, hey, here's our Pinterest of all of the stuff that's out there. You guys can go look at it there.
We have kind of, but like we had like an Instagram where we were very like posting about it a lot when the book was released and kind of leading up to it, and we've neglected it a bit. But
well, it's still there.
We did like
for
start to
whoever
share.
Wants to go check it out. So
we will add more. We just haven't had like a lot to kind of contribute, and we haven't been able to share much of like the next book yet and that sort of thing. But it'll happen.
That's a-okay. ParaNorthern. Spooky season. Tell us a little bit about this book, because I've from what I've heard, this book is pretty ridiculous, and it sounds amazing.
I love it. So it's technically called ParaNorthern and the Chaos Bunny Apocalypse. And up front, my favorite fact about this book is that the publisher full on had a conference meeting on how to best put a pun in the title. Like they had a sit down meeting with people, and they were just like, all right, people, let's figure this out. And I don't know if that's what happened exactly, but like in my mind, there's a whiteboard, there's like a laser pointer, there's people sitting around a conference table, and people are like, puns, let's go.
Exactly.
And that just brings me like a lot of joy. Like it brings me so much joy. So that tells you nothing and everything about this book.
It's a good trivia fact.
Yeah. I maybe could have saved that for after I explained it. But so basically the story is about 4 friends, and this is Abby. She accidentally opens up a portal to another dimension, and it is filled with chaos bunnies. The chaos bunnies come flooding into their world and begin wreaking havoc. They're kind of like Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. Like they're not inherently evil, but they destroy everything around them.
Sure,
so Abby thinks she's going to get in all this trouble because she's opened this illegal portal. So her and her friends team up to try and help her close this portal and send the bunnies from back from whence they came and stop the apocalypse.
Sounds amazing. It reminds me a lot of, what was that? I'm blanking on the name now. It was like the vampire bunny, that like Bunnicula. Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of that there is this bunny or bunnies out there that is just causing problems, and it's just like, well, we gotta figure out what to do with these guys.
They like completely destroy the world, but it has like this little like page where I'm sure it's like backwards, but they have like a little write up in Abby's bestiary.
Ooh.
And they've got some sharp teeth, and
Oh, there you go. So
I think they're kind of like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think they came from like, again, my parents didn't really let me watch a lot of like movies and TV growing up, but there were like a few specific things that my parents would let me watch. Like we watched TGIF, we watched Sabrina and Boy Meets World and Teen Witch and all this stuff. Not Teen Witch, Teen Angel. All of these things. I'm like aging myself so specifically, but you know, and we'd watch like Disney on Sundays. But then my dad would also then be like, we're gonna watch like things like Pee-wee's Playhouse, and we're gonna watch Monty Python, and like all of these like really strange things that just shaped me in such a strange way. And I think I was really delighted by the killer rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yes.
It's a good one.
And I think it stuck with me. You can't see it because it's behind my plant, but there's like a little Funko. And like I have very specific niche Funkos. Like I have like a few around, but there's like definitely the Tim the Enchanter and the little bunny behind the plant there. So I think that's like kind of like my ode to the Holy Grail. And then again, marrying it with like Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. And it's just kind of a melding of things.
Yeah. So being a graphic novel for younger kids, how like what is the spooky factor on this book?
Yeah, I don't think it's like super spooky. Like I think again, the bunnies aren't really scary. There's not like a ton of like there's one I think scene where the bunny kind of jumps at our little Pumpkinhead friend Silas. But realistically, I don't think it's like jump horror vibes or anything, you know. It's not like meant to kind of scare kids. It's meant to kind of more embody the essence of Halloween and like the fall and have kind of that sense of like, you know, things that go bump in the night without kind of actively setting out to scare kids, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's more kind of what I was going for. Like, I definitely didn't set out to write a horror book. I'm like a huge wimp. You know, I was on like a horror podcast last year, right? And like, I was on this horror podcast like last year, and they were like, wow, you wrote like a horror book. I'm like, did I?
It has these like adorable bunnies that like are mischievous.
Yeah. And like, I like horror. I like the idea of horror. But like, again, my parents did not make me watch enough media to desensitize me. I am scared of everything. So to me, I love fall. I love Halloween. I love dressing up. I love kind of the spooky vibes, but not like being scared out of my mind.
Right.
So
yeah,
again, like I wanted to capture that rather than terrifying and traumatizing children.
Absolutely, yeah.
I looked over this book. I love that it's about a witch and her friends are a wolf girl and a ghost, like real classic Halloween characters. And then also, like you said, a pumpkin head. And we've all seen pumpkins around. We see kids with like pumpkin masks on and whatever. I love that Pumpkinhead is just written down as the name of the entity that is. We all know Pumpkinhead. We all love.
Yeah, he's like a big activist in his community. Abby and her mom own a cafe, and he, in a very early scene, comes in and has some very strong opinions on pumpkin spice lattes. So he's not happy and would like everybody to consider going pumpkin spice free for the holidays. Even though me, myself, in the real world does enjoy pumpkin spice lattes. And sorry, Silas. But,
stuff. So what was one of the most difficult things that you had to go through? What was one of the most challenging obstacles of making ParaNorthern?
Yeah, so even though Oh My Gods came out first, ParaNorthern was actually the book that I sold first. So it's publishing is funny, and it's the same publisher, the same editor, it's the same entirety of everything except for the creative teams.
Sometimes it just works like that, you know?
Yeah. And no complaints. It is what it is, and I love all of my book children equally, but ParaNorthern was actually sold first. So I think kind of, you know, prior to that, I'd only really worked on longer projects for myself, and most of my published work had been short stories, which I am a big, big advocate of if you want to kind of do comics or any kind of storytelling. I think starting small is a great way to kind of find your voice, figure out what you want to do, what things you enjoy, and kind of go from there. So ParaNorthern was the first time somebody was like, great, we want it, make it. And so it's a little bit daunting to kind of go from, 10-page short stories to then writing like 200, 250 pages and make sure that it all kind of is cohesive. And I think the part that I didn't really understand that I would struggle with, especially like the writing, I outline really heavily. So I already have kind of a structure in mind to kind of keep me going and to keep me on track. Because again, kids, ADHD is not your friend sometimes. But editing, and specifically when I got notes, I didn't know how daunting that would be to implement in a long form project. I think it took me significantly longer, even just like on the first draft is always going to be the worst. And the notes are so extensive. And like, it's like a week first of like rocking yourself back and forth and like trying to process everything and not like feel like you're about to be like catatonic and you don't know how you're going to kind of recover. But then you're like, oh, okay, these make sense. This is a good note. Why didn't I think of this? But it's still, you have to implement it. And if you take one thing out, it has like an effect throughout the book. And you have to think about all of those different points that change and make changes that work. You can't just like, Control F and find all instance of this character that doesn't work anymore and take it out. Like the story needs to completely readjust to like, we took a character out of the book. And so like, my editor was like, why would you make this whole other character when you have Abby's sister? Like use Abby's sister to kind of be in this role. And it's like, oh, that is a very good note. But you, again, have to kind of think about how that's going to affect the rest of the book. So I think editing was really the big thing that I struggled with to kind of process and break it down. And I had to learn how to kind of like make it so I could process and cope in an effective way, because you still have deadlines you have to meet. So
yeah, exactly. It's the whole process is something that I'm really fascinated by as someone who went to art school and stuff like that, just to know all of the work that goes into any kind of creative piece. There's just so much you don't think about or don't know unless you worked on it yourself. And there are some things that can be as simple as like, well, what if we just don't have this character? And then it's like, oh man, that means we need to like change this and we need to fix that thing, but then they do this, now we can't do that. And it's just like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff here that is affected.
Yeah, it's really wild. Like it's, again, I put in a joke that was like funny to me. And like this character existed as a thing that I was tickled with and found very funny because it was like an homage to another character. And I was like, oh, this is clever. And my editor was like, yeah, we need to get rid of this. But like nicely, she's a wonderful editor. I would take a bullet for her.
Yeah.
But like, I was just like, I don't want to kill this character though. And you're not really killing them, but like, they're effectively going into non-existence, which is maybe worse actually now that I put it that way. But like, it's hard to wrap your head around it. And if you're wanting to do something creative, and especially if you are not self-publishing, you really need to kind of make a peace early on with the fact that you're going to have to let go of things and you're going to have to move on from some ideas that just don't work. Like editors, what they're saying isn't the be all and end all. Like ultimately you can push back on something and be like, you know what, I'm going to keep this. But if they're flagging something, it's because it doesn't work. And you need to kind of figure out a way to kind of process that and separate it from the story you originally had in your head. Like both ParaNorthern and Oh My Gods are infinitely better than when they went to our publisher, and the stories have changed, not drastically, like the core of the stories for both are there, but they evolved enough to kind of make sense and to be better stories. And that's because, our editor had notes, and I think we were good about listening to them, like no story is going to be perfect. And you kind of also have to make peace with that too. Yeah. And not everyone is going to get your story. Another thing you have to make peace with. But
why is he a pumpkin head? What's a pumpkin head? You never explained what a pumpkin head is.
I swear, I have like two things. I don't Google search like things often. I did like one because I was looking up like things for pull quotes specifically. Mm-hmm. And and I came across Christian mommy blogs that had like reviewed both Oh My Gods and ParaNorthern. And like one of them was like, ParaNorthern might be good. I don't know, but I didn't read like 1/3 of the or 2/3 of the book because there was magic in it, and magic is the devil's playground. And I was like, oh, okay. And then Oh My Gods, like they were real mad because we used the Lord's name in vain a bunch. But I was like, but it's in Greek mythology. But
different pantheon here.
That was more funny than like annoying. But like, yeah, sometimes it's like hard. I only kind of like look at reviews that my editor or my agent send me now.
Sure.
Because like, if you go on like a place like Goodreads, which is like not made for authors, it's made for readers to connect with readers, you will not be a happy person as an author. Like I remember like looking at this review from like this probably like 45, 50-year-old man that's like, and Oh My Gods, the villain is really obvious. And I'm like, Gary, it's not for you. Like, it's for children. Of course it was obvious to you. It wasn't made with you in mind. So
That's great.
It's hard sometimes to not like want to clap back at people who just like don't get that some things are not for them,
Yeah. That makes sense.
I mean,
that makes sense.
I try again not to look for those things anymore. I don't want to actively add anxiety to my life.
Yeah.
I can do that without that.
Indeed. On the opposite end, though, what was one of the most rewarding experiences? Did you have something from either of these books that just worked out so perfectly? You were just like, oh, yes, I had no idea, or just it feels so good to have it like work out the way that it did.
Yeah. I mean, with Oh My Gods, again, so as a quick, like, fun fact, like, Insha, Juliana, and I came as a package deal to our publisher. So we had already formed a team going into that. And
sure.
We knew we wanted to be the creative team. Whitney was brought on by our publisher as our colorist, but our core team was made in advance. With ParaNorthern, it was not. So I came in and pitched solo as a writer. They bought the book, and then they paired me up with Mari, who they brought on and all that. But that was really done kind of as an aside. So with Oh My Gods, we were pretty connected to Juliana, and Juliana would like periodically update us or like show us character stuff or pages, and so we were always semi-aware of what was going on there. Like we didn't ever bug her, but whenever she wanted to share, we were there to be like, you are a beautiful angel and we love you. Like we are team moral support. And, she got a beautiful dog, Bruce Moon. We love him. He's like our godson. He's just perfect and he's an angel. Anyways, not the point. But again, with ParaNorthern, I wasn't really as connected because Mari was brought on by the publisher. So the editor was our point of contact. So I didn't really talk to them at all. So I think kind of like the best thing about ParaNorthern and just kind of in general was getting to see the art for the first time. This story had lived in my head for so long and had just been this thing that I'd envisioned, but, don't have the skills to put it down on paper myself. Sure, and getting to see the art with the colors and like, again, Mari just has like this amazing like like this fall aesthetic. You can see lots of like reds and oranges.
Nice.
And, you know, like, I swear, it was genuinely like magic to me, you know, like getting to see
That's awesome.
what's been in your head on the page is magic. So I think that's like something that's also just really amazing about comics is you get to see your ideas come together and come to life. And it's really, really special. So I think that is never not like the best part. You know, every single time I get art, like it's just like I'm going to go cry in a corner happily for a while. Be like, wow, this thing exists. So
it really is a good feeling. I have one published comic, sort of. It was a short story that I did with a friend of mine in college, and we submitted it to our school's like it was like their first like comic focused magazine. And they had a bunch of student submitted stories, and we didn't hear anything for the longest time, so we just thought like I guess we weren't picked, or like it wasn't in the book. But I had been asking around of like, where can I find out more information on this? And someone told me to go to a certain building, and I went there, and the student that was sitting there at the desk when I was like, hey, so I submitted to Comicality, this magazine, she had no idea what I was talking about. She was just like, I don't know anything. But as I was talking, someone else came out from behind back there in the building and was like, did you just say Comicality? I was like, yeah, I submitted some artwork and stuff like that. And he was like, follow me. And he was like, what's your name? I was like, it's Kyle Springer. He's like, I got something for you. And then he takes me in this like back room that is just filled with boxes. And he opens it up, and it's the magazine, and my artwork is on the front cover of this thing. And I'm just like, we didn't even know we got in. Like, what in the world? This is amazing. This looks so cool. Which my artwork was not all that.
What a failure of communication.
But
what
still,
a win of
just
artwork and a failure of communication.
Yeah.
Also, way to like undersell that. First of all, any kind of publishing is published work. So like, it's not sort of, it is published. And that's like incredible. So like, kudos to you.
I definitely put that on my resume of like, I am a published
You
comic
should've.
artist.
Front cover.
It
That
is
is very
publishing.
snazzy.
Absolutely.
I am like
absolutely.
a firm believer in you need to like toot your own horn, especially when it comes to comics or anything creative, really.
Yeah.
Because other people like aren't really going to do it for you. You'll have like friends who will lift you up and support you and stuff. But if you're not like your number one fan first and foremost, like who's going to promote your work? And published work, self-published work, work at a magazine, that is all published work in my eyes, and in any editor worth their like salt, that is published work. So
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So my next question is, what's next? What I know you're working on a sequel to Oh My Gods. Do you have other things in the works that you're hoping to make? Is there stuff that you can talk about or mention?
yes. Okay. So hopefully in like the next little while, I'll have a big thing I can talk about soon, which may or may not be slightly related to things we've talked about. But the one that is announced that I can talk about is my first YA graphic novel.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's called Pillow Talk, and it's coming out in 2023 from Clarion Books. So my same publisher, but we're doing a YA book. And Pillow Talk sounds really suggestive, but it's like about an underground pillow fight league. And
Amazing.
yeah, I am never not extremely on brand. So, and while the story is fictionalized and the character is a fictional being and creation, it is very much based on a true story of one time when I accidentally got roped into an underground pillow fight league fight for the BBC.
Amazing.
Yeah, so
that has to be a great story. I cannot wait.
I can tell you the story if you would like to hear it.
Yes.
But like,
yes.
Absolutely.
Pillow Talk itself, again, follows the story of a woman named Grace who finds this league and has like low self-confidence and basically uses this league to kind of realize that she has a place in the world and like just to kind of like go ham with something, kind of like in the wrestling, but
Sure.
like with pillows. And so the Pillow Fight League is a thing that for real existed in Toronto until not that long ago. And there were straight up matches, and it is not like, we're going to like hit each other with pillows and it's going to be cute, we're in pajamas. It's like roller derby meets like wrestling, but with pillows. Like I saw somebody chokehold somebody with a pillow and then straddle the guy until he tapped out. So several years ago, my friend was the president of this league. And they were like, Steph, the BBC is coming to film this segment and they'd like us to revive the Pillow Fight League. Will you be a fighter? And I was like, yeah, sure. And like, I did no research whatsoever. I asked no questions. This friend I felt would not put me in peril. And so I did no research at all. And like the day before, I was like, okay, we're going to like Google this a little bit. And again, I saw the only rule realistically is anything goes, but the pillow has to be the first point of contact. So you could technically punch somebody or kick somebody as long as it's through the pillow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I show up. I'd watched all these videos. I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And then there was like the reigning champion there who was named like Carmen Monoxide. And she gave us like pep talk and like was like teaching us things. Yeah, they had derby names.
Amazing.
And basically she gave us like an intro course like there. And I was like, oh, please. I don't drink now, but that day I drank. Like, I was like, I'm going to need some beverages to get me through this. Thank you. And so we had this little tutorial, I guess. And then you got like put into these matches. And the first match was relatively fine. And then the second match, though, was still mostly fine, but I rolled my ankle while I was fighting. And I still finished the match because
good for you.
You know,
Good
adrenaline.
Sticking it out. Yeah.
But then I was like, afterwards, I'm like, oh no, did I break my ankle? And so I had to give like a little interview. They're like, Steph, so if you make the tryouts, and they were kind of like framing it like this is like the tryouts, the Pillow Fight League is being brought back into the mix. These are our contestants. I'm like, are you gonna like join the league if you get this coveted position? And I was like, no, I never want to do this again. Do not ask me to do this. They're like, you know, and then I had to go to the hospital. And I didn't initially go because I was like, I'm fine. But then it was like, not fine. So I went and then had to explain to the hospital how I thought I broke my ankle and tell them about the Pillow Fight League.
Yeah.
I think the words I used, I was like, I got into an extreme pillow fight league. And like, the first woman was like, okay. But then like the main nurse I had was a guy, and he was like, that's awesome! Like, he was so into it. And I didn't wind up breaking my ankle, but like, it was like probably a couple years afterwards, and I was jokingly like, I should write a story about like this Pillow Fight League and create like a fictional league and like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I like just kept working at it, and all of a sudden it was like a full story, and my agent was like, yeah, let's shop this around. And it's like, nobody's gonna want this niche weird book. And turns out my editor was like a huge wrestling fan and like was like, we love this.
That's perfect.
And yeah, so very different from my experience, but based around the same
good
concept.
inspiration.
Wow.
Yes.
I kind of ashamedly watch Riverdale. I love it,
So
but
do
it's
I.
hot garbage. But they had their own like underground like tickling.
Oh, yeah,
it was
tickle
maybe
Oh.
more like of a fetish thing, kind of. But it
Yeah.
was still
Mhm.
it was still just like, this is so ridiculous. I can't stop watching. This is amazing.
Riverdale is like this beautiful mess. And like, I kind of watch it when I'm like drawing or like doodling, so it's in the background. Because like if I watch it too closely, I'm just like, what am I doing with my life? Like, truly.
It's just complete junk food.
Yeah. And then like, again, my friend Hagai, like he's very into this and is just like, it is the perfect show, Stephanie. It is literally perfect. And I'm like, but is it? But anyways, Hagai, if you're somehow listening or watching this, don't yell at me. But it's just like they did that jump ahead to the future, like to the adulthood.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've watched that far into it.
I
I've only
think I'm
watched
a
like the
season
first
behind.
half. Okay, there's just like there's this war montage, and they're like, "Oh, she's gone to war," and I'm like, "What?" Like it's just what? But they're on a football field, like they're on the Riverdale football field, and like
So
I'm like, but I
wild. This
know
show
where
is
it
ridiculous.
was. Yeah, and then it's like trying to explain it is like trying to explain one season is like my best friend's mom trying to explain 40 years of The Young and the Restless to me. Like, it's just like somehow more ridiculous. I don't understand how, but it is.
It's entertaining though. Like I don't think you can go like I don't think anyone who watches that show can walk away and be like, the show is boring. It's just like
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
ridiculous and so moody and atmospheric that just like it's at least you at least have fun like making fun of
Yeah.
it or being amazed
There's-
at the stupid stuff that they do.
I remember there was like an episode and my partner came over and I was like in the middle of an episode. So I was like, I'm going to finish this, okay? And it was like this perfect storm of like all the seasons because it was like Betty was going to visit her serial killer father in prison. But
Yep.
then the cult was also happening and Chad Michael Murray was there. And he was like, why is Chad Michael Murray in this? I'm like, oh, he's the cult leader. And he's like, a cult leader? Why is she going to
Wow.
visit this guy in prison? I'm like, oh, he's a serial killer. That's her dad. And then the other thing, the Gargoyle King showed up and they're like, he's like, what the hell is that? I'm like, oh, there's like a deranged like Dungeons and Dragons thing happening right now. And that's the drug dealer that's selling giggle rocks and like all this stuff. And he's like, I cannot. And I'm like, yeah,
It's
like,
just a fever dream.
yeah.
And
And
the
I'm like,
first-
I know what it sounds like. I know how
The
to explaining this is.
First drug that they had on that show, its name was Jingle Jangle. Like,
Yes.
that's the name that they came up with. Amazing.
Hold on. The first drug? They've moved on to
Mhm.
additional drugs?
Like Stephanie said, giggle rocks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
like real interesting. You know, like I know what it is and I enjoy it. Again, I can't watch it too intensely or I'm just like, I have a headache.
Yeah.
But there's just so much going on. And I just constantly ask, who came up with this? Like, who sat in a writer's room and like very seriously came up with these concepts? Like, did they just go, all right, all of these are too normal? Like, no. Like,
Somehow, I
just
don't
questions.
remember his full name, but the guy that also writes Afterlife with Archie. He's
Yeah.
working on the show. So somehow he convinced people to go along with Jingle Jangle and Giggle Rocks and a magical D&D game and serial killers
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It's great.
And then like Jughead's in like a private school with serial killers, and there's like a secret cult, or like not a secret cult. There's like like a frat. Like I can't think of the word. Secret society.
Yeah.
I got there eventually. But like, there's just in any episode, there's so much happening, and what I wouldn't give to see what drugs everybody in that writer's room is on.
And what were the names that got like rejected? As like, no, that one sounds normal.
Right.
Like we're not going to do that one.
I have so many questions. Like I feel like we're like, well, the show will eventually jump the shark anyways, as will happen. So what if we just do that right now and save everybody the trouble of being like, when is Riverdale going to go off the rails? Like, we're just going to lead with that.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Like, the first season is like towing the line of like normal. It's like, but what if Twin Peaks, but Riverdale?
Yeah.
But, it's just so next level.
It's a good time, though. But I have one last question for you before we let you go. Besides comics, is there some other kind of medium that you would one day hope to work in, whether it's film or TV or musicals or something like that?
I mean, yes, all of those, to be honest. I wrote a radio play like years ago, which was a ton of fun. Called, The 5 People You Meet in Hell. And it's like the 5 people you meet in heaven, but if it starred like Seth Rogen or something.
Melissa, we'll have to keep that in mind for the review show.
Yeah, it's very strange. But we didn't just like want to do this podcast. We did it in front of a live studio audience too.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
For like an added sense. But anyways, my point being is I really do like dabbling in different things. And you've mentioned musicals, and I want to write Pacific Rim the musical so badly. Let me write this.
Yes.
Like, it's all I want in this world. Guillermo del Toro lives close by to me, and like there is not a day that goes by that I'm not like, what if I casually just walk in this area and casually run into him, and I'm casually like, let me write your musical.
Guillermo? Is anyone named Guillermo here? Anyone? No?
Yeah. Right? I would love to do like a musical someday. Me and my friend who did the 5 People You Meet in Hell, we started kind of writing a musical together. And then we both, again, have ADHD and got sidetracked. But I'd love to do like TV someday. TV and movies are so much more structured than comics. And I've tried kind of dabbling in writing episodes for them. Sure. But like comics has no set script structure. So it's just kind of a free for all. As long as you're kind of being courteous to your artist, your letterer, like everybody on the team, nobody really cares.
As long as you guys know how to work together, then
yes,
it'll get made.
And to be fair, that makes my scripts sound like they're a mess. I swear there's structure to them, but screenplay writing and movies, it's just like a lot more structured and would require me to have to like learn and like go in and like properly format things. So those are things I really do want to play with at some point. It's just like, when do I have the time? But
that'd be fun.
Pacific Rim the musical.
Melissa, I know you're a big Pacific Rim fan too. We covered that, I believe, this year, or was it late last year?
I think it was sometime earlier this year. I think it was in the spring.
We've got a little Gypsy Danger right here.
Oh, I see her. Nice.
Yeah. I love Pacific Rim a lot. And
that was another one that we didn't do it for Shametember, but Melissa made me watch that one because I'm big into like Gundams and mechs and stuff, and I hadn't seen it, and she was just like, Kyle, like how? Why?
Yeah, right.
Why?
Especially because you keep pitching me like Gundams. And I'm like, Kyle, there's room for like one mecha story in my heart. One only. It's just Pacific Rim. Let's just do this.
Ugh, it's so good. And I remember seeing it in theaters, and a friend of mine had gotten us like advanced screener tickets. So it was like this IMAX theater. And I just remember I wanted to see it, but like I didn't really know what to expect. I really thought it was just going to be like this beautiful mess. And we had like the 3D glasses on and everything. And I remember just like, I genuinely went, and like my mouth was like agape for like the entirety of the movie. Like every single time I thought my jaw couldn't drop further. I was just like, I love this whole movie. Like it was just, again, I brought this up like 15 times, but ADHD. So like I can't always sit through movies like a lot or like in theaters for like long periods of time. And I went back and saw this a ridiculous number of times and was just like, give me the movie. I want a Cherno Alpha comic. I want to write that so badly. I want that. There is like one that exists out in the world on like Tumblr, which is very fun. But yeah, I could talk about this forever.
Melissa,
they should do like a Fast and the Furious and then a Pacific Rim mashup, and they like Voltron the cars into a giant mech.
Yeah,
copyright.
That's got to be the next stage.
Everybody.
Like, I think they've been to space. I think the only steps left are like they go underwater or like deep underground and meet mole people, or like
alternate dimensions.
Yeah, just like a Vin Diesel with a goatee. I'm dark.
It's evil Vin Diesel.
Yeah, just stick those cars together. Form a Voltron. Make Ludacris build that.
I need this in my life so very badly. And then they fight monsters or a giant robot that somebody builds, like Charlize Theron.
Yes.
So
there you go.
Just saying.
Melissa, maybe one day we can get you a bit part in Stephanie's Pacific Rim the musical.
Absolutely. I will play Panicked Citizen on the streets.
I love it. I love it. A little kid did write me a letter like earlier this year, and it like made me cry. But it was like this really cute letter about how much she loved Oh My Gods. And then there was 3 PSs, and the second PS was like, PPS, can you make Oh My Gods into a movie, and can I be in it? And I was like, what a flex.
Amazing.
I love this kid. Like, you assume I have a lot more power than I do, but sure.
Dream big, kid. Dream big.
I love it. I love it.
Indeed.
To her, to you, everyone can have a part. You can have a part. You can have a part. You know, it'll be great.
Indeed. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Captain's Log. This has been a blast to get to hear about all of the stuff that you do. This has been fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I talk so much, so
you can come back on here as much as you want and talk as much as you want. We will gladly have you back on.
Oh my God. So. Literally anytime. I do nothing and I am available to say things.
Okay, good.
Sounds good. Well, with that being said, where can people find you on the internet? Where can they buy your books? Where can they find all of that stuff?
Yeah, so I think obviously a safe bet is my website, which is stephaniecooke.ca. Cook has an E on it. And then I'm online. I'm terminally online all the time. I'm at Hello Cookie on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to check out the Capercast, it's capercast.com.
There you go. Good stuff. And Melissa, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kids shows you feel like only you remember.
And if you guys want to stay up to date with me, I'm at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter. If you guys want to follow all of the things that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. So go like, share, subscribe. You guys know the deal with all of that. But that about wraps us up for number 162 of the Whatnauts Captain's Log. So thanks once again to Stephanie. This has been a blast. Thank you. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah.
And we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.